cruelty. It's cruelty, plain and simple. And I think we need to keep that in the forefront of our thinking. Anyone can slash and burn, but it's leaders that understand with compassion and earnest efforts that we can do better. Now, I believe that every meal that you serve, every box of food that you distribute, and every person you help is a strong statement, a testament to compassion and the spirit of community. And so that's why I so respect the work that you do. But you shouldn't do this work alone. There should be a partner in government that is working alongside you, assisting with the basic core need. There are far too many people who are hungry in our society. They forget what we're doing. I mean, not forget, but put aside the impact of USAID, where we're allowing food to rot. Hard work of farmers across this country, bringing produce to the USAID program and having it rot and not distributed to the people that we can help. Children dying because of that consequence. Medications not received. But you deserve a government that fights for you, with you, not against you. And I promise you that this session is important. As I go through the district, I gather those stories. I want to amplify your voice, take that voice to Washington, and make certain that people are listening to these stories. They should compel us to do better. And just know that at the end of the day, this is about addressing people with dignity, that we speak to the basic human rights of individuals, and that we go forward so that nobody in our community goes hungry. Nobody. And it's frightening, it's angering. I watch with great interest how callous some of the people assigned to these roles are. And they make it like it doesn't have any consequence. And when we know it's reaching here, it's reaching across the state, it's reaching across the country. And they're going to be devastating impacts because they're asking in this new budget appropriation where the Ag Committee, which is given their assignments for USDA and other ag-related efforts, to cut from the bill we passed without my vote. They have to cut some $220 billion, and most of that, I can tell you, is earmarked for hunger programs. So let's see it for what it is. We need to raise our voices. We need to share the stories. We need to bring us together as community to make certain that in this country of plenty, this doesn't happen. This doesn't happen. So let's go around the table and have, sister, you could lead us, okay? And have everyone introduce themselves and perhaps just give a line about your concern here, because then we'll get into dialogue. But thank you, one and all, for joining us.
Thank you very much, Congressman Tonko. This is Sister Betsy Van Dusen. I'm the Chief Executive Officer of Catholic Charities of the Diocese of Albany. We have 11 food pantries and 3 soup kitchens, and are already seeing significantly the impact there. I just learned from one of our food pantries this morning that we've now had federal workers coming to food pantries for the first time because they've been laid off and they don't have, they have to learn how to use a new system that they've never had to use before.
Also good morning, Mr. Tonko. Thank you for being here. This is an important item, and I'm glad that you're taking this seriously. I'm glad that you feel so strongly about it. So my name is Christy Tessel. I'm the Executive Director for Rutherford Community Center. For us, we're kind of a new upstart, kind of 501c3 where every penny matters to us. We're trying to spin off from Messiah Lutheran Church, and we're doing it, and we're planning, and we've got it figured out. But this puts everything in jeopardy. This could really damage us. It spreads us too thin. We don't know what we don't know. We don't know what to plan for, and we don't know what's going to happen. So we're worried about that. We're worried about where our funding is going to come from, how we're going to come up with the funds to match the increased need. and also the rising prices of food. So for us, this is a really scary thing, and it's a scary thing for all of our clients. We serve over 400 clients each month. That's a really scary thing, and we're terrified. We want to be there, we want to help, but we don't know what's going to happen because of these cuts. So, Mr. Tonko, thank you again.
You're welcome. Carl Andrzejczyk with the Almond Place Food Pantry out of Amsterdam, New York. Paul, thank you for stopping by 2 weeks ago at our program. We appreciate it. We've been in business for about 25 years, but in many different formats. We started as a soup kitchen, and then moved on when the needs expanded, and we moved into a more of a choice pantry type program. And then when COVID hit, basically all hell broke loose for us. And I think for all of us in this room, we saw massive increases in the amount of need that happened. And at that time, we were probably doing maybe about 250 families a week, and that blew up to almost 700 in a week. So you can see a tremendous need that we had for food, and currently that need has continued. I think this is a multifaceted issue when you look at inflation that has been hitting us. We have more migrants who have come into our purview here in New York as well as across the country, and we didn't plan for that many people. So when you look at all the help that we need, the government has to become a partner with us, because we want to serve people. We will never turn somebody away who needs food, no matter how bad the situation is. So we'll work as best as we can, but having the government support is probably our biggest need.
My name is Amaury Taño Santos, and I serve you as the Executive Director for the Sycamore Collaborative. Thank you for the invitation. Sycamore Collaborative has been in existence for 60 years, about 40 of those. We started doing the food relief work, and this interfaith collaborative never thought it was going to become our thing in the community. We are the largest food pantry in Schenectady County. 20,000 visits that we're expecting are going to be logged by the end of our fiscal year. This is thousands of people in Schenectady. That when we run our numbers and compare it to the population of the city of Schenectady, we would be serving the equivalent to 8% of the whole population of the city of Schenectady, right? Cuts in funding from the federal government will adversely impact what we do, and we're going to hear some numbers later in the work. But in the state constitution in New York, it says that it is the state's responsibility to make sure that the welfare of its citizens exists. And we're looking for ways in which we are partnering with the government to make sure, both at the local and the federal level, to make sure that everybody gets what they need, not only to survive, but to thrive. Right? Thriving is what we're going for, and food has to be a part of that work.
Thank you, Congressman Tonko, for being here. It's always a pleasure. Michael Leonard Poindexter, Chief Program Officer here at the Regional Food Bank. 350,000. That's the number of people we're responsible for feeding every single month. That includes your seniors who have to choose between food and medicine. That includes the child that needs to take the backpack home on the weekend because they battle food insecurity. It's your neighbor down the street who smiles at you but has no idea where their next meal is coming from. And these cuts would significantly impact the work of this organization to meet the needs of our community. Not just our community in the Capital District, but our community through 23 counties. We distributed 54 million pounds of food last year. And these cuts would significantly impact that, to the tune of close to 200 truckloads, which equates to 8 million pounds of food. We're sitting around with pantry partners who do this work day in and day out as partners with us. And for the majority of them, all of them, receive their food from us as a regional food bank. If we don't receive the food, they don't receive the food. And then the 350,000 people around the state will not receive the food that they need every single day.
Thank you for coming, Congressman Tonko, and thank you for your ongoing support of me and the Regional Food Bank. Really, truly appreciate it. 1 in 9 statistically speaking, one of us are experiencing food security. That's what it looks like here in New York State. And that number is remaining the same. That number actually is increasing each year. I was just having this conversation. And in order to meet this need, we have amazing partnerships in our community, with partnerships within the food community. We have partners in the farming community. We have partners in our neighbors. But we also rely on government partnerships. And so we're working hard at the state level to make sure that state programs like the Hunger Prevention Nutrition Assistance Program and Nourish New York remain funded. But we also so desperately need the partnership of the federal government, particularly with the Emergency Food Assistance Program, to get the nutritious foods in that we need to thrive. That administrations may change. They always change. But the food bank remains here. Our lines remain here, and our partners remain here. We need your assistance to get this job done.
Thank you.
Good morning, Congressman Tonko. Thank you so much for the opportunity. Appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Good morning, everybody. I am Rosalind Harris, Food Program Coordinator for Macedonia Baptist Church in Albany, New York. For those of you unfamiliar about where we are on the busy Central Avenue corridor near the Kentucky Fried Chicken. So we are an easily accessible pantry, and we get quite a few people who either walk, take public transportation, carpool. And we have seen a significant increase in our volume over, I would say, since Thanksgiving of last year. And it keeps going up every month. We noticed immediately about the lack of items available, USDA items available through the regional food bank. And it was disappointing. I was just saying to Robin here, somebody came in the pantry the other day and said, do you have any raisins? It seems like a little thing, but raisins are a big thing. Raisins and nuts and rice and pasta. They're just big, what I call the pantry staples that we should always have on hand, like peanut butter and jelly, bread, eggs, milk, butter, cheese. So anything that the state and the federal government can do to facilitate funding to help us keep helping our pantry guests is greatly needed and would really be appreciated. And thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for having us and also for being here for us. My name is Robin Fontanelli. I am the team leader and president of Sidewalk Warriors Troy. We are a pop-up food distribution. We are hands-on, boots in all the way. This is 100% volunteers. We are there for everyone that comes to us. We are a low-barrier organization. We try not to ask a ton of questions. Sadly, this is going to be forcing us to ask more questions and put perimeters on our food pantry. Last night we served 300 people, and I had to ask questions, and that was really hard, understanding where they're coming from. We have so many individuals that truly aren't seen by so many, and they are seen by us being there. They are fed by us. They see you care. We give them that dignity, and that is what we need. And thank you for being an advocate for us, because we truly need you. Truly.
Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you, Congressman Tonko. My name is Cristona Whitney Hernandez. I'm the Executive Director of LifeWorks Community Action in Saratoga County. And we are the largest food pantry in our county, and similar to my colleagues, have experienced a tremendous increase in the need and the number of services that we're providing. Pre-pandemic, we were providing less than 200 services a month. We're currently providing 800 to 900 services a month to our community. About 80% of those are delivered to people throughout our county, so we serve communities and families in the northern part of Saratoga County that are at the foothills of the Adirondacks, as well as in the heart of Saratoga Springs. And we have more than 100 active volunteers that help us make this possible. We truly are a community of neighbors helping neighbors, but we need the partnership from government to make that happen.
Super. Well, thank you all for being here again, and thank you for, most importantly, the work you do and the connecting that you make possible. That does build community. And it's important for people to know that there's care and concern out there. As we look at some of the mandates that they're putting onto the committee tables, for my sake, we have the Medicaid issue because I'm Energy and Commerce and we deal with healthcare, including mental health and behavioral health and addiction services. We're asked to cut, by the vote that was taken and approved, again without my support, $880 billion minimally, if not as much as 1.5, or 880 billion, if not as much as 1.5 trillion. So these are numbers that just boggle the mind, and how we do that is going to be the exercise over the next several months. But to the ag table again, with the agriculture assignments that go with SNAP and the food hunger programs, the emergency programs, they have to be cut by $220 billion according to the bill they passed. So in that plan too is to pass along to states more responsibility. Well, any of us would be truly not a neighbor if we asked the person next door to pay our bills, because we're not going to pay ours now, we're going to save. And it just, again, is a step of not responding, not being responsive or responsible in the effort. So my first question that we should address perhaps is the DOGE cuts that will affect your organizations. And by the way, thank you for the partnership that you all provide. I think that brings a nice cohesiveness to the efforts that are made. I remember way back in my assembly days that the Regional Food Bank was, in my first year in office, an opportunity for me to help you in your kickoff. And remember calling then Mark Quant as the leader and telling him the good news. I think it might have been around midnight, but I was so excited about it. And to watch how you've expanded into these 23 counties just is a great foundational effort. So, to the DOGE cuts, are there specific programs that you would advise me to be extra sensitive to? They're all important, I know that. But for which of these are you most reliant or dependent upon?
Folks, can we just keep one microphone per table? Just look at the back
So
side.
you could push one back that way. Yep. And then all exactly. And then
We thought we were being friends with
We
you.
didn't quite
Friendly crowd then. Usually give the mic up, okay?
I have two answers to that question, both on the USDA. When the CEO for the Regional Food Bank a week or so ago announced that you guys should be getting ready not to receiving 200 truckloads worth of the food, and that would impact about 10% of the food that goes out through the food bank. We started running our numbers. TFAP, this USDA product that comes through the food banks, the emergency food relief organizations. It's important for us because it's at no cost to organizations like ours. It provides the good quality food to the people that we are serving, and because of the increase in demand that we are seeing, we have come regretfully to rely on that as part of our regular distribution. When we were running our numbers, TFAP for the Sycamore Collaborative alone, not for Schenectady County, for the Sycamore Collaborative alone, represents $470,000 worth of food, which is about 32% of our procurement budget. So we're really concerned about the impact that can have for us. And then we were talking about LFPA, which is the one that recently they got talked to, and how that funds in New York State, New York Food for New York Families, and also at the Nourish New York. We have a contract for about just over $500,000 for Nourish New York, and we are concerned if that money is cut, how it's going to impact the current conversation in Albany around budgets and the strides that we have achieved around better funding in that and Nourish New York in New York State. But it's not only about the amount of money, of $500,000 in Nourish New York for us, it's also the relationships Nourish New York has created for organizations like the Sycamore Collaborative. It's about the Sycamore Collaborative not only not being able to buy more food locally, but it will affect our relationship with a local CSA from what we have been purchasing for the past 3 years, and we represent about 1/4 of their accounts because of the relations that we have been able to build with this the partnership down in the Squire Valley. It's affecting our relationship with a local sauce producer who, we partnership with us and the Regional Food Bank and other organizations. They themselves researched and developed a product that is compliant not only with University of New York, but also with state ed regulations for local school districts, but also not-for-profit organizations that do food relief, be able to buy their product with University of New York and similar funding. And it also affects our partnership with local pasta producer who, we had some complaints about the pasta recipe, and we were able to feed it back, and they redid the recipe in a way to respond to the people that we serve and provide dignity to them in the way the people that we were serving wanted to consume pasta and the like. That directly affects those relationships. The ability for us to partner with growers and producers, the ability for us to give feedback for the people that we're serving, so the food that they're receiving is food that they like and they want. It's affecting the local economy because we're not going to be able to inject direct local money into the local economy to sustain that work forward. In our case alone, at the tune of $500,000 a year.
Thank you. Thank you. Carl?
Yeah, Paul, I'll just, again, want to thank everybody for their input that I've heard here. I've got some things that I've been writing down. I want to make sure my group knows of what's happening. But I'll just give you an example of something that happened to us right away. We had a grant through Feeding New York, and along with the American Dairy Association. That was a $25,000 grant to provide milk over several months. And for us, we have so many young families. So one of the problems with Montgomery County was that back in 2020, when Feeding America was doing their review of what food insecurity looked like, they had an issue in Montgomery County where 1 out of 4 of the children were going to bed hungry. And we have done everything we can to increase the amount of food getting into the hands of families that need it. From 7,000 pounds maybe a week to now we do about 31,000 pounds. And we have seen that improve in the latest Feeding America look at what's happening with the counties in New York State. Montgomery is no longer the second worst county for food insecurity in the state, just behind Kings County in New York City. We're now a little bit closer to getting to the middle of the pack, which is incredible for all the programs that have been working in our county to make things happen. And we'd like to see these things continue, but interestingly, that grant for milk stopped 3 weeks into the change of the different of the presidents basically taking place. So in February was the last delivery that we had. Interestingly, I got a call about 2 weeks ago that the deliveries are going to start up again. They just don't know how long they will last. We had it planned out that this would have gone on through August. Now we're kind of playing it by ear, but our first delivery is coming on Thursday of next week. So we'll see how that goes.
And I think that could be some of the most brutal outcome, right?
Oh,
So
absolutely.
you develop a connection.
Yes.
And now it's discontinued.
Yeah,
And when you're achieving great results, we look at this as finding a meal, getting a meal, but significantly it's about children growing, maturing in a very strong and vital way. Seniors staying well. Many of them, nutrition is a key component in their wellness activity or in their recovery from illness. So across the age spectrum, there's a lot of benefits that are maybe not focused upon. We're seeing it as meals delivered, but it's much more than that. I would suggest even the socialization with a lot of the senior programs with Meals on Wheels and stuff. So, yes, thank you. You mentioned a
31,000 per week pounds of food.
And what
17,000 comes from the Regional Food Bank here.
Okay.
Will be picked up, like we just had a pickup this morning. In order to make this happen, we used to start off with little trailers. We have about 10 trailers hand loading things. Now we got a 26-foot box truck that we saved a ton of money to purchase. And we come here It's also
What was it?
supplemented.
Carl, what was the earlier number that you said it went from one?
It was, we used to do about 7,000 pounds here back before COVID, and then that just blew up. And right now, we're averaging anywhere from 31,000 to 32,000. There's 800 families that come in. We try to provide about 40 to 45 pounds of food per family, and unfortunately, that's 31,000 pounds.
You know, many of us talk about recovering from the COVID era,
Yeah.
but there's still that recovery
Oh my
going
God.
on.
Oh.
And
Yes.
the whole issue of food insecurity really started to peak during the COVID experience for many understandable reasons and some for, unusual measurement. But, yeah, we have to move forward. And in these recommendations, there's like, I think a 23% reduction with the emergency program. And again, more reliance on the states. If we're gonna be passing on everything to states, it comes up to a huge tax increase on a property tax oftentimes, because it then filters down to the local level, which is, all at the expense of finding the dollars, because the tax cut is spending dollars on billionaires for a bonanza tax cut, and to see the community struggling to make that happen just seems warped and unacceptable. Socially defunct. So I think, Chris, you look like you wanted to say something.
No, I have nothing to add to that, and I completely agree. We're experiencing the same thing. Same kind of issues. The food items aren't there anymore. We go to order, they're not available. It's already hitting us. It's already affecting us. It's already affecting what we can offer, what we can purchase, and then what we have to give each week. So it's already happening. We're already doing it, and it's again, it's terrifying.
Right.
Yeah.
So you asked the question about DOGE. For us, cafeterias is very widespread and we do many, many things. So substance use is a huge piece for us. Food stamps, because that's in this conversation, the food stamps will be cut. We're already in a really hard place, or the people who are walking in the door are already in a very difficult place. If they have less coming in the door, they're gonna need and demand and require more from us. And so those two things are certainly significant. We also do domestic violence programming, and there's much conversation about violence. I think for me, in Montgomery County was one of the places I was most aware of this, is about taking away our ability for our farmers to farm. And once those opportunities are gone, for instance, once a dairy herd has been dispersed, there's no ability for a family to get that herd back. And that is the end of a family farm. I think it's no less true. I mean, you mentioned USDA, I think USAID as well. I mean, essentially those two programs are putting our farmers across the country out of business. So who's gonna feed us? And I think you're right, I think it's so short-sighted, is who will feed us? Who will feed America? Hello. Not just what's gonna happen, but who will do that? Because what those farmers do for us every day is make it possible for our grocery stores to be open. And certainly huge concern here, but mostly here, is a livelihood and a way of life and a reality in our country. And in very short order, many of those things are changing. And so we stand with you. I have asked my whole team and our board of directors to reach out to Congress, and I'm sure you've heard from many of them, to say this is not okay with me. Because what I have said to them is, at the end of the day, whether or not we make the change, we have to know that we did what we could. And so that's what I say to everybody is, we need to do what we can. So let's get about doing what we can. And this is certainly one of those ways.
Yeah. Some of the calculus out there suggests that this could affect 143,000 jobs in the state of New York and an impact of some 1.8 billion. So those are huge outcomes that are to the negative that would affect us. So how about our side of the room here, the other half of the room?
Sorry about that. I also concur that we do need, the continued funding for USDA. But also, our pantry is relatively new. We've been operational for about 2 years, but our volume in that 2 years has gone up quite a bit. And I know we're talking a lot about the food that we provide, and the food is certainly really important, but our pantry also provides what I consider basic needs: diapers, feminine hygiene products, cleaning supplies. And if our families coming through the pantry don't have to pay for those things, then that allows them to stretch their food dollars further. Also, in partnership with the Regional Food Bank, in addition to the pantry, once a month we have a drive-through food distribution that serves anywhere from an additional 300 to 400 families a month, and that allows us to really expand the use of our food dollars. I don't know what we would do if we did not have the opportunity to do those food drives and serve those people. And we want to expand services to people. We want to be able to deliver, mobile meals to people who can't physically get to our pantry, to our seniors, to our new moms. But we don't have the truck, we don't have the staffing. There are things we are working on personally, but anything that can be done to increase funding so that we can help feed more people, we would certainly like to do that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
One thing that I would like to just elaborate a little bit more on is from a perspective of when someone is hungry and then someone has the opportunity to not provide their family a meal, they tend to make bad decisions. They tend to make worse decisions. And I find that in our community, we often will see situations where our crime have increased. We see, and I actually have a couple of personal relationships with Detroit PD, and they have shared with us how grateful they are for our organization, because we're on the streets and we actually have helped so many people coming through, no questions again, but just coming through and allowing them to have that meal for their family, to be able to take an absolute gift of 5 pounds of chicken legs. Guys, I can't even tell you how thankful they are that when they get that bag of meat, and then when they can go over to the next table and get the fresh produce. This is impactful. And without it, I can't imagine what's going to happen. From your own self-esteem perspective, you can't provide for your family. And even as much as we all try to allow our friends to have that dignity, that has to be very hard for them to come through line, to come through to our spots. So truly grateful. Any help, and these programs being cut from a mental health perspective from all the levels is going to impact so many of us. I thank you for being here.
Thank you, Crystal?
I think what we're experiencing right now with our food pantry is similar to maybe what many families are experiencing sitting around the kitchen table trying to figure out how to make ends meet. We have increasing need and increasing expenses, and we're looking at fewer and fewer resources and support to do that. And I know that the Regional Food Bank has been an incredible partner and is a lifeline to all of our food pantries, but rely on the federal support in order to stock our pantries. And when we're looking at an inventory that is significantly decreasing, we're then going back and not able to provide as much food. For families who are no longer relying on food pantries for emergencies, this is a standard way that families in our communities are trying to make ends meet. And it is hard to ask for help. Nobody wants to go to a food pantry to feed their family. They're doing it because they have to, and they're trying to do what's best for their family. They show up at our doors trying to do the very best that they can for themselves and for their children. And I know that in our community, hunger does not discriminate based on political party. It is all people in our community who are benefiting from these programs and services. And they're hardworking families, they're seniors, they're veterans, they're children. And right now, as organizations, we're trying to figure out how to continue to provide that basic support.
So, thank you.
So we're not talking about luxury the items here. A few of the loads that we've had canceled are things like milk and eggs and cheese, apples, oranges, chicken. These are things that when you and I open our refrigerators, we are grateful for, but sort of expect to be on our shelves. The food bank doesn't want to be in a situation where we are now scrambling. We had depended that these loads were coming in. Our ordering practices followed that dependence. So now we're working to replace those loads with our resources as hard and as diligently as we can. But this responsibility shouldn't be up to us. It shouldn't be up to our partners. This is food people are expecting to come to our doors, and we just want to make sure that we have enough on the shelves.
Right. Thank you all for the dialogue, because it's very helpful to be able to focus, more importantly, on the impact on each of your programs and on the universe of the district itself. I'm mindful of the fact that we're asked to find $4.5 trillion in cuts to programs so that we can afford this tax cut for billionaires and corporations that don't pay taxes at all, perhaps, that are going to get a benefit, or some that don't pay their fair share. There's got to be a better way. Now, the last time, what this is a reauthorization, because in 2016 I voted against the tax cut. That went, again, 83% minimally went to the top 1%. I thought that was not the thing we needed in the district. But the first round of Trump activity, President Trump's first administration, first term, borrowed $2.3 trillion to pay for that tax cut, which bloated the deficit, the largest single amount in our nation's history. So, this is telling me there's got to be a better way. You acknowledge that you're going to spend on billionaires. Come up with something that doesn't hurt the many of us. I don't know what it is, but you proposed it, and don't ask for people to sacrifice a meal or mental health programs or healthcare in general. This is a cruel approach. Now, the pledge was, we heard it over and over again for many months, if not over a year. On day one, our food costs are coming down. On day one. Now they're going up. They haven't gone down. They're going up, and unnecessarily, because of terror that is done in a Wild West manner. So everyone is suggesting, the economists are suggesting, at least a 10% sales tax on all these items. And so, again, we're in this dilemma where we're asking everyday New Yorkers, the general public, to pay for this. And to pay for it not only out of their wallet, but to pay for it by lack of services that might be required. And, and then we all know about the attacks on Social Security, where they're already closing offices and requiring more visits and the like. So there's a real need for us to speak up and show up and make a difference, because I'm convinced it's people power that will turn this situation around. So if these cuts were to remain in place, and I have my commitment to do everything that they totally get wiped out, but if they stay in place, what do you see as the long-term impact on our capital region, on your program, on our capital region? Anyone?
I think that there's the lines that we experience now will obviously still increase. We're doing nothing to help in that situation. I think overall, though, where I see the biggest hit is we're going to lose the ability to have fresh vegetables and chicken and the things, the high protein source items. We're already planning for next week, so because we're so low on chicken and other meat products, we're giving out peanut butter as our protein source. We got a lot of it, and so what I'm thinking now is, I think as this expands, we're going to be involved with a lot of non-perishable type products that we'll be giving out. They may not be the healthiest solutions for our people, but when you need food, you reach for any sources you can. And if we're not gonna be able to get what we need, let's say for the regional food bank in total quantity, I've got to reach out to my donation partners and help try to get that amount of food so that we can make sure people have something.
Sister Betsy already suggested that we're seeing people who are being laid off from the federal government in our lines, right? I am concerned how those layoffs and other cuts in federal funding will affect other industries, private industry in the state, and it will increase into those lines. And I'm also baffled by the idea that the federal government can do cuts and then just have the states fill them up. When states like New York, we're battling this in the budget season, right? But states like New York are already doing significant work, all things considered, in bridging the gap and increasing accessibility for New Yorkers around food and other sources. I'm baffled by the thought that during the pandemic, when SNAP benefits were increased for children, half of children in poverty in the state of New York were lifted out of poverty. We found a solution, a significant solution, an important impact on children in poverty, and we cut it right back.
Yeah, let me just jump in there. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but it's important to state. Calendar year 21, we brought back the child tax credit. And one half of children living in poverty were lifted out of that poverty. We tried to keep that going, and the change in leadership in the House stopped that. But that was the best thing we could do for families. They were given, and we found in analyses after that, the credit was brought back, that 72, I think, is my recall, but 70+% of the money from that tax credit that found its way to households was spent on basic needs, utilities, food, rent, mortgage payments. So that tells you that so many people say there's two economies right now in this country. And it's the people who are struggling, and then there's those who are, they're making money on their money. While people are going to work and not being able to cover all their expenses. And people will say, well, if you want to eat, work. On the floor, I was challenged by a colleague with that statement. And Rosa DeLauro, who has been recognized for addressing hunger worldwide, was on the floor with me. And I looked back at my colleague and I said, sir, you should travel into your district, because I have a situation in my district where people are not only working, but have 2 jobs, in some cases 3, to maintain the households, the ability to live and go forward. So a lot of misinformation or unawareness of real life situations out there. But I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No, and people who have multiple jobs, and those in here who do multiple work, and not only food, right? They can attest to the impact that has, and still making the line to come to our pantry, right? One of my commitments in the work that we do, and I know is shared with everybody in this table, is that if food is not the concern that families are facing, I know that the amount of wallet space and mental space that is opened up can mean the difference for a family, right? What I am wondering, right, and is that the investment in bringing children out of poverty the way that we did, the investment in making sure that food relief organizations have the money they need to be able to serve the increasing demand that we have, pales in comparison to the amount of tax cuts that are going to be received by corporations and people in the 1%, and have proven to be significant impacts, not only people living in poverty, but the ability of families to be able not simply to be, again, surviving, but to thriving. So it's flabbergasting, and I go back to Sue's comments, for the federal government, for people in Congress to think that they're going to be cutting this and the states are going to pick it up, when in fact, it is organizations like ours, the food bank and each one of us, who are having already to meet the difference, and then have to pick up already, after cuts are made, the true impact that this will have in our ability to serve the people.
Yeah. I think that basically this is such a challenge it's a critical juncture for this country to determine if we're going to create a fair economy for all of us, or continue this effort to allow, you know, a greater chasm to develop between those who are comfortable and those who struggle. I'm told we've got about 5 minutes left, so I want to do this. I want to ask all of you to share with me what you think I and my colleagues should know to better understand what food insecurity means to the American families out there. So whoever wants to start.
So, well, it means everything, right? So nutrition is everything. It's the beginning of everything, the fundamentals. You don't have nutrition, you've got more ramen. You've got more ramen, you've got more childhood obesity, you've got higher medical costs. It's proven that a healthy child who's eating correctly and it has that kind of nutrition in their life, they learn better, they do better in school, they go farther in life. It's a snowball effect. It affects everything. Nutrition, food insecurity, it is the basis of everything. And without it, there's nothing good that comes from it. So it's vital. It's paramount. It's one of the most important things that we can do is make sure that our children are fed, our families are fed, and they're healthy, and they're taken care of so that they can worry about their homework or their test next week and not worry about if they've got food coming. Parents don't have to worry about what they're going to feed their children. It's just its fingers are integral into everything. It's that important, and we have to treat it as such, and we have to act on it because it's such an important, vital thing for us to have. So that's what
Now, I hear you, and I love the fact that you share education as one of the factors.
Yeah, absolutely.
I've been involved for a long time with the food programs for schools, and I think, you know, we should expand it because no kid can learn on an empty tummy.
Absolutely.
And, you know, we can finger point, but let's know that whatever investments we make in front of life investments go for the longest stretch as a benefit. So, sister.
Well, we know that if children are malnourished, they are ill for their whole lives. You know, there's sickness and disease through their whole lives. I think to think about family systems. I'm not a mom, obviously. I'm a sister, so I'm not a mom. But I can't imagine what a mom would have to do. You know, how do you know that you can't feed your kid? How do you know that? How do you go to bed at night knowing that? And we think about, you know, what happens in our communities. Well, crime is going to increase because desperate people do desperate things. And what we're doing in this nation right now is we're making people desperate. We're making them afraid. We're creating chaos. I would say a lot of people in this room are probably not part of that, but chaos is being created and people are afraid and they don't know what happens next. And so thank you that you continue to speak for those who don't have a voice. Thank you for speaking and continuing to poke your fellow congressmen who maybe don't quite get it, to say it does matter. This stuff really matters to regular people. And oh wait, regular people in your district too.
Okay. Thank you so much. Carlo,
Yeah, I was just going to add the fact that we're just one little area of the United States right now. We're talking about the concerns we have. I've been reading articles about Rhode Island, Montana, Nevada, all complaining about this and asking where are we going to get the funds and the money to purchase the food that's needed for our people. I have a feeling all 50 states, all 400 something of our congressmen are going to be facing these complaints. And it's time that the congressmen, that House of Representatives stand up and say that we need to be counted on this
People's
issue.
House.
Yes, it's the People's House. Yeah. Because the Senate will follow if everything goes right with what happens in the House.
All right. Well, you kind of highlighted some of it.
A well-fed child, it means a child that learns and can evaluate his or her imagination. Well-fed adult is a thriving, imaginative, and productive adult. And a well-fed elderly person is a person who can manage his or her chronic situations.
I'd say that food insecurity does not look one way across the board. And I think we often say, well, this person must be food insecure because of how they look on the exterior. But food insecurity is rural, it's urban, it's suburban. We do drive-through lines, and there are people who come from all different zip codes, and we know those zip codes. And neighbor you have down the street who you think is perfectly fine may have empty cupboards. The other thing I say is that this is a choice. It's not like we are a nation that has no resources or has no money or cannot fund this. We are a nation full of resources, and the choice is being made to make sure that people have nothing. And so I thank you for the fight. We thank you for the fight. Please know that you're not fighting alone. We appreciate your representation for us in the People's House, but there's a choice to be made here. And the choice made today, we will see 10, 20, 30 years from now.
Yeah. Thank you, ma'am. So,
So food is hope. I always say it. And one of the reasons why I've worked in this line of work for this long is because every day I get to work with a network of people who offer hope. And so we have a glass right now. 25% of the food we distributed at the food bank last year was USDA PFAC commodities. Half of that is currently under drip. So we can look at this glass, and all of us in this room know that that glass needs to be kept full. But it's now on us as the food bank. It's on all of our partners, on everyone in this room to figure out how that's going to be filled when it was filled. We'll continue to do this work, but we need help.
That's right.
excellent. Great analogy, too.
The only thing I would like to say is that we want to be able to continue to deliver food at the current level that we're delivering it.
Yes, ma'am.
We don't want to have to cut back. We are one of the pantries that is open on weekends, so we get a lot of traffic on the weekends. Right now, we allow families to come through twice a month. We don't want to say that they can only come through once a month. We don't want to limit what they can have. We have to limit to a certain degree, but we want to make sure that when they leave, our goal is to have enough food for at least 3 days. That's our goal. And we want them to have the things that they need to feed their family. People mentioned chicken. Fish is huge in our pantry for the people who do not eat chicken. They always ask for the fish. So, and I would just like to say personally, if you've never known what it is like to be hungry, maybe you should. Because a hungry person, you remember. I remember as a child, my mom, if all she had in the house for breakfast was oatmeal, I never liked oatmeal. I don't like oatmeal to this day. I went to school hungry. She never knew that because I never said a word, because that was the best she could do at that time. She didn't find out until a couple of years before she died. When I mentioned it, she goes, I never knew. I said, because you were doing the best that you can. So, to be hungry is a bad, bad thing. And for people who have a lot of money, maybe you need to spend some time on the streets and go without a meal, a couple of meals, and see what that feels like. And maybe that might change your mindset.
Okay, Robin.
I feel, anxiety is going to climb. Anxiety is going to climb to such a high degree, and that's going to be long term. That's going to be something that's going to affect our, I'm much older than I think I am at this point, but it's going to affect our families. It's going to affect the grandparents. It's going to affect our seniors, and continue, because when you have this much anxiety and you're worried about putting food on your table to feed your family, your anxiety is off the roof, and that creates so many other problems. And then you're put on medication, and we all know medication from a long-term perspective of what that does. And it's not monitored properly. There's so many aspects of how this can go in a very poor direction. So your help is needed. We need hope. Thank you.
Thank you. And to close, okay, thank you so much for all of you for joining in, but thank you. The floor is yours.
Thank you. I would just like to say that hardworking families in our communities need help. This is not cutting waste. It's cutting an investment in the families who are doing the absolute best that they can to provide for their families and for their children. And we're efficient as well. I would challenge many businesses on comparing their efficiency with our organizations because we do a lot with a little.
Come on.
It is not waste, it's an investment.
Thank you, Crystal. Let me just close with this anecdote. I was at a diner once, sitting alone in the booth and just having a quick breakfast, and I witnessed a senior couple, a husband and wife team, getting breakfast, sitting on one plate, and they shared it. And it just told me, people are stretching their budgets. Hunger's a real thing. And Roz and I've done those hunger fasts with some of them after eat in the past. It's a great experience because you realize this is what your neighbor goes through every day. So you have my pledge to really work hard. This is about, again, human right to food and to address hunger, to combat food insecurity, and to address people with dignity. We can't allow for this craziness to just fuel dollars in one direction at the expense of these programs. And that includes Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, infrastructure money, housing money, mental health, behavioral health. The list goes on and on. General health care. We need to show people that we're a compassionate group, and I believe we are. But, to food is hope, we want that glass to be full. Half a glass, not good enough. So, thank you for your commitment. Thank you for your encouragement, and let's keep raising our voices. A lot of people are counting on us.
Thank you for being here.
Everybody can just stay put for a second. If you guys have any on-topic questions, feel free to ask those now. We're going to do any on-topics over to the side over here afterward.
So I'd also like to get a picture before everybody scatters, but I do have a question for the congressman.
Sure.
One thing that struck me as interesting was the folks in government talk about cutting waste. And when they're cutting waste, they're cutting Social Security, they're cutting Medicaid, they're cutting food stamps. What goes through your head? I mean, to me, that equation is our neediest, our waste.
Yeah.
Like, what does that say to you?
I
the government's making that equation.
As many of you know, in the media, we had a roundtable discussion on folks who were fired in their role as a federal government employee. And I've talked to some of those folks, but I've also, in traveling through the district, talked to a number of people. Even in Washington, when you have people who have come in from the agencies that are now on the discard list, they know none of this team, the GOER team didn't, or the DOGE team didn't come in to understand the culture of that program, of that agency, what the track record has been, whose job is doing what. None of that. There was no academics involved here. This was a sheer, I hate to say it, chainsaw attempt. When I saw that whole depiction by Elon Musk, I said, how can you be so thoughtless? This is harm and hurt that you're inducing in the lives of people, and you're advertising that you had your chainsaw working and working real well. And it's that unforgivable part of that work that is causing this kind of heartache, this anxiety that you're all talking about. There's got to be a better way. And the best way would have been to go to your inspectors general, and they're at the agencies, and they're nonpartisan. Their role is to make certain that law and programs are implemented as legislatively intended, right? Our Constitution tells us Congress established programs, the House has the purse, the Senate confirms it, and the President implements the programs. Well, they're implementing their cuts through a ghost agency that was never authorized by Congress. And they're allowing for this hurt to go on without understanding what they're doing. They don't know what the cuts mean, how much reliance there is on certain programs. Inspectors general could tell you where they appear before us all the time for hearings, and they'll offer their critique of these agencies where they're falling behind in responding to the to the requirements of programs and budget earmarks that are part of the process. So they could have gone there, but they discarded the institutional awareness in the name of inspectors general and kicked them to the side. And so they're doing it on their own. Again, you've got a team of 19 and 20-year-olds. I'm not bashing that age group, but I'm underscoring the lack of experience with that agency and going in and doing some really deep cuts that are really rendering programs useless or cutting them out totally. You know, I don't understand, like every day our office gets notified of new cuts. To totally decimate the research being done on Alzheimer's. I am proud of a bill I got signed about 7 or 8 years ago to develop a national plan to end Alzheimer's. And the epicenter of that program, research. They're suffocating the hope for people. And we all know loved ones, parents, siblings, grandparents who have gone through this terrible disease. They lose their identity. And to give these families hope and then pull that hope away, it doesn't make you proud of government. It's heartless, it's senseless, and it's got to be ended. Yeah.
You just said you want to bring what you learned from this dialogue to Washington and amplify the voices. What guarantees are there that your colleagues on the other side of the aisle will listen, will bring this right?
No guarantees, but nothing ventured, nothing gained. I think I've got to believe that a lot of my colleagues understand what's going on here, but don't have the spine to challenge the people that are orchestrating this miserable effort. I'm hoping, like, just with the recent tariff activity, there are some rumblings now in the Senate they've done this bill to address the Canadian tariff. So maybe the pressure is growing, I hope. In my house, in the House of Representatives, I don't feel that yet. There's a lot of like cutting frenzy, like people support some of this effort, but I do believe too that there are those you have to be in the House from the majority that that don't accept this. Eventually you get your report card, right? I get a report card every 2 years, and I got to believe that from what we're witnessing across the country with town halls and group discussions, there's a lot of anger, rightful anger, and, you know, making it difficult. But, Dan, I don't know. There's no guarantee, I guess.
I'm sure you too, that people who are served by the ballot today don't want to wait 2 years for a report.
And, you know, even where there were cuts and then, you know, we're doing a lot of litigation, a lot of advances through the courts. And at one point, this is old information, but there were 140 cases brought, and I think there were 124 cases brought, and I think 40-some victories so far. So we're winning in courts, but just to stay on dollars is hurtful because it's interrupting like that day or two or that week of food delivery. So the pain is there too, even when it's held in abeyance until the courts decide. But far many of these cuts have already gone through, and my concern is, like, if you're firing these people, can they qualify for unemployment? And so we're causing drastic harm to families. I talked to an individual who served as a planner for DOT in New York as a federal employee, and she stated that she thought her role in that agency was significant to address efficiency. I would think so. I think planners with DOT engineers are a good check on efficiency, had superior reviews of her work and was let go. And, you know, she went home, she was distressed, found out through email, which to me is so unprofessional. And, you know, her 3-year-old found her shedding tears. And she said, you know, I've had a bad day, and if I recall, I'm paraphrasing, but it was pretty close. Her daughter said, well, Mommy, it's okay to show your feelings. And I said, your 3-year-old has more empathy than the guy who fired you.
Any other on topic? Okay, we can have everybody share your piece of quickly. If you want to get it back on the center table, then we'll go on topic. And I need to get my call from the front.
Okay, we won't take anything.
So we want to take pictures to kind of get in there.
So, did you say we're standing for?
We're doing one, everybody seated, and then one.
Okay. While we're waiting for our photo, let me thank again the Regional Food Bank for hosting us. It's a great space.
Let's start on this side. So we were here. John. And then we're here. Thank you, everybody. Got it. Thank you. One over there. Double T.
All right.
Everybody stand up. Get behind the table.
We listen. You're welcome, Sue. Thank you. How long has this room been here? It's pretty cool. Come on in.
Everybody kind of like prom style, so you can maximize space.
Hey, y'all acted like prom style. That's good.
Give me a corsage.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. Wrist goes high.
Here.